Welcome to the only daily podcast focusing on compliance news of the day. Each morning, start your day with a cup of coffee and Tom Fox, the voice of compliance, to hear about 4 of the top compliance, corruption, or leadership stories you will need to start your day. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network.
(2020), the Tech and Railroads edition. And we begin with that story in a very interesting dissent. Justice Clarence Thomas compared big tech, Twitter, Facebook, etc., to common carriers for the purposes of regulation. He claims that because they are the platforms which are the major or a major manner for distributing speech, they really form the basis of the common carriers for ideas. And that's a really interesting interpretation, but it also follows a very much older interpretation of tech companies basically following the railroads, as not only the internet was built, which of course we used to have railroads, then we had hardwired internet, and now it's in the ether with the internet, but it would really revamp how tech is regulated. So I don't know if this will play out any further, but it's certainly something from a legal perspective that's very interesting to take a look at. Next up, from the Wall Street Journal, Risk and Compliance Journal, Mingy Sun reporting, corporate ethics hotlines received fewer overall reports in 2020 despite a surge in COVID-related health and safety reports. Navex showed that Navex's data showed that there was roughly a 7.1% decrease in hotline reports over their network. Philip Winterburn, interviewed from Conversant, reported that Conversant's numbers were down a little bit higher. So Whistleblower reports down. That's obviously troubling because it's not clear why, whether people are afraid of retaliation, simply afraid of losing their jobs. Could be they're just plain afraid. It's doubtful that there's less fraud going on because we certainly know that's up. But the SEC whistleblower program had over 6,900 tips, which was the most it's had since its inception. Next up, from the New York Times, an article about corporate America's frantic response to the Georgia voting law. Georgia corporations, particularly Delta Airlines and Coca-Cola, received a lot of negative feedback for their performance in allowing the Georgia voter suppression law to go through. They claim that they took out some of the worst provisions, but frankly, if you can't pass out water to people standing in the hot sun, it's really difficult to believe how things could have been worse. But since that time, there's been a robust corporate response attacking the bill for what it exactly is, a racist voter suppression law. And now, of course, Mitch McConnell has weighed in, said corporations better watch out, he's after them. And finally, from the CFPB is news that they will suspend foreclosures and evictions into 2022. The senior advisor at the Bureau, Diane Thompson, said we're really at an unusual point, and there have not been this many foreclosures and evictions perhaps since the Great Depression, but nevertheless quite a bit. And landlords, the CFPB does not want landlords to take advantage of this economic disaster befallen by the Trump's administration response to COVID-19 to send people out on the streets. So foreclosures may be forestalled. The Daily Compliance News is a production of the Compliance Podcast Network and a proud member of C-Suite Radio. Thanks so much for listening. I hope you'll join me again tomorrow.